Um, so you may have noticed that I didn't make a video for a few weeks. So this week we're going to be talking about Survivor's Quest by Timothy Zahn. This is the 6th Star Wars novel by Timothy Zahn after the Thrawn trilogy and the Hand of Thrawn duology, and it takes place 3 years after the latter series. Luke and Mara have been married for 3 years and are running various missions for the New Republic and Talon Card's, whatever you call it, information trafficking business. In this book, they're called into the unknown regions by the Chiss Ascendancy in order to inspect and possibly claim the spaceship Outbound Flight. The Outbound Flight, as detailed in The Outbound Flight by Timothy Zahn, his 7th novel that came out right after this one, it was an extragalactic exploratory vessel created by the Old Republic, captained by Master Joruus C'baoth, that was sent out into the unknown regions, although its final goal was supposed to be the next galaxy, but it only made it into the unknown regions because Thrawn at the time was a member of the Chiss Expansionary Defense Fleet. He got into a battle with the Vagari, and Outbound Flight was crashed/destroyed on a new planet. So back to the Luke and Mara stuff, which is really the heart of this book. At this point, Luke and Mara have a really strong telepathic and empathetic bond. You know, they did that mind meld in the last book, and so they're really very connected to each other in a unique way I haven't seen with really anyone else in Star Wars. You know, it's even deeper than probably the bond between Elzar and that other person, I forget her name, in High Republic. The Rising Storm? Yeah, it's the Rising Storm, the one I reviewed last time. And when they're called by the Chiss to see the Dreadnought Clump, the Outbound Flight is a group of 6 dreadnoughts around a central core. There's actually a diagram of it at the beginning of this book. Look at that. Look at that right there. See, it's a clump of dreadnoughts. But, yeah, when they're called into the unknown regions to inspect it by the Chiss Ascendancy, well, you know, that information is relayed through Talon Card, who had a man working for him named Dean Ginsler, who is going to become important later. So they're called to the unknown regions. They get on this Chiss Ascendancy ship with the leader of one of the Chiss ruling families. His name is Formby. They meet him. They meet a bunch of his crew. They learn they all wear yellow, like I'm wearing today. And they meet up with another group who they kind of met in the last book, but I don't think they were named yet. The Empire of the Hand. Well, actually, they meet a group of stormtroopers from the Empire of the Hand's version of the 501st Legion. And what's interesting is that this is actually the first official piece of Star Wars media to feature the 501st Legion, or a 501st Legion, I guess. You know, the 501st Legion is a real-life charity organization where people dress up as Star Wars bad guys like stormtroopers and clones, although it's debatable whether they're bad guys, but whatever. You know, they dress up as them and they go do charity work and shit. I think they were on The Mandalorian. They built this droid named R2-KT for one of the founder's daughters who died of cancer, and they're a really cool organization. I'd love to join them someday. I'm pretty sure they have a outpost or whatever you call it near where I live. Garrison. I think they have a garrison near where I live. Love to join them someday, but not sure I'm willing to sink that amount of time into that movie accurate armor. I don't know. Anyway, unlike the real life 501st Legion, I think that the 501st Legion in the Star Wars universe are bad guys. I hope that's not controversial because they killed children, but I think they should be bad guys considering they're Vader's fist and everything. You know, maybe during the Clone Wars it's kind of debatable, but like, if they're wearing the Stormtrooper armor and they work for something called the Empire, I think that even it's the Empire of the Hand, which is marginally more justified than the Empire, I think they should still be portrayed as bad guys and not like incredibly sympathetically or nicely or whatever. And so when this book shows them as being like cool dudes who, you know, just want to protect the unknown regions in the galaxy from the threats from outside the galaxy, you know, it kind of rubs me the wrong way. Palpatine was evil, and the Empire he created was evil, and the soldiers for that Empire served an evil cause. So, like, sure, the Empire of the Hand isn't as much of an empire as the Galactic Empire, but they still use fear, and they still use that fear, and they force people to not fight against them, and they use the symbols of the Empire. You know, it rubs me the wrong way to have people being like, well, what Thrawn did wasn't that bad, and it's like, he's a villain, and he did villain things. Feels really revisionist. That's the right word. Zahn does write good books, but sometimes he justifies imperialism and authoritarianism, and those things are bad. You know, he writes good books. I always enjoy the books for the most part, but like when you try to analyze the themes, especially in conjunction with the original Star Wars trilogy, it kind of falls apart, and it's On a lighter note, it's pretty cool that Zahn got to play around with, you know, prequel stuff. This book was released in 2004, and the prequels were a novelty, you know. That wasn't even that long ago. Sometimes we as Star Wars fans forget that, you know, the prequels have only really been fully established as an era for a little over a third of Star Wars history. You know, with Revenge of the Sith. And, you know, with the Clone Wars and stuff, those have been fully established for even less time. So for a lot of authors, you know, things like the Trade Federation and their battle droids and the Jedi ban on attachment were fairly novel things, and I assume pretty interesting to get to play around with. Somewhat related, but this means that Zahn has to retcon some of the stuff from previous books. You know, he has Luke think about like, oh, Yoda told me you weren't supposed to have attachments, but I guess he just married Mara anyway, and he never talked about how the Jedi weren't supposed to have attachments, and it's just, I don't get it. You know, it's a soft retcon, you know, I guess it kind of makes sense, but, you know, you'd think this would be a bigger internal thing for him to debate over in his mind in previous books, if it was an actual thing. You know, unfortunately, until 99, people didn't have any information really about the past. And, you know, the Jedi thing about attachment wasn't even really established until 02 with Attack of the Clones. So, like, a lot of Legends material just happens to ignore that little fact. The Jedi weren't allowed to have attachments. Plus, it kind of quietly adjusts the timeline. You know, it tells us the Outbound flight launched about 50 years ago. It launched in 27 BBY. This book takes place in 22 ABY. That checks out. But, you know, Zahn before this was working with the assumption that the Clone Wars were 35 years prior to the original movie and not the 22 to 19 that they ended up being. And so a lot of the timeline just doesn't really work out if you look at it under closer scrutiny. But, you know, if you just kind of ignore it, it makes enough sense. You know, back to the actual plot, but I wrote down in my notes that Formby, one of the Chiss, the leader of the main ruling family that invited Luke and Mara on this expedition, actually seems like a pretty chill dude. As far as I can tell, there's like two types of Chiss. Chiss that are relatively chill, and Chiss that are just dicks to humans. They're just mean and gross. Also coming along with the Chiss, the Empire, and the Jedi are a fake ambassador named Dean Jinsler, and a group of aliens very interested in seeing the outbound flight, who are definitely not the group of aliens Thrawn battled over by the outbound flight a while back. They actually are the group of aliens that Thrawn battled over by the outbound flight a while back. Anyway, these aliens are in reality called the Vagari, and despite my making fun of it, it's actually a pretty interesting twist that I definitely didn't see coming. And, it's for that reason I'm glad I read this one before I read Outbound Flight, because I feel like it would have just been totally ruined for me if I read this book first. Oh yeah, there's actually another very important plot point that comes into play before the Vagari reveal, but I didn't get a chance talking about it yet, is that the Outbound Flight is still populated with, I think, some aliens, but mainly humans. So yeah, that's pretty important. But yeah, the original passengers and their descendants have been living on Outbound Flight for almost 50 years. And no one realized until now. So that's gotta be embarrassing. You're like, here, we're gonna give you this vessel. It's unpopulated, and we're sorry for the part that the Chiss played in the battle. And these Jedi are like, that's okay. We're good. We're chill, man. It's okay. And then it's like, oh, shit, no, actually it's not yours anymore. It's the people living there. Oh, fuck, okay. Anyway, these old passengers and their descendants really, really hate the Jedi and Chiss. Which, I mean, fair, I guess. However, despite the fact that the Outbound Flight citizens, or flighters as I like to call them, hate the Jedi and Chiss, and some of the Chiss also hate the Jedi and Outbound Flighters, after the Vagari are revealed to be the Vagari and evil, everyone comes together and gets over their prejudices for the most part, and just fight side by side in order to free the Outbound Flight from Vagari control. Anyway, in the Unknown Regions, they apparently don't have any droids or anything. So when the Vagari get their hands on a droideka from the Outbound Flight storage system, it's a really big deal, which, I mean, it's kind of funny in retrospect after the Clone Wars, where Anakin and Ahsoka just get rid of droidekas like that. But, I guess back then it would make sense, because, in Episode 1, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan don't even risk fighting them. They run away. They fucking run away. Roll the clip. But yeah, it takes Luke and Mara an embarrassingly long time to get rid of one droideka. Anyway, they defeat the Vagari for the most part, and there's some foreshadowing for NJO, and that's about it, I enjoyed the book, even if I disagreed with it thematically on some points. But, I don't know, some of the plot just felt incomplete, I felt like there should have been another book after this, where Luke and Mara defeat the Vagari for the final time. I don't know, at least in this book, I don't know if it felt like a final victory. I don't know, part of that unfinishedness is probably because Yuuzhan Vong War happens right after this, NJO and everything. And so, there really isn't any time to continue this story in between this one and NJO, but, I don't know, the main conflict of this was with the Vagari, not the Vong. And so, for the end of this book to be foreshadowing the Yuuzhan Vong War, it doesn't really feel right, because this plot line, I don't feel like, ever really got resolved. The Vigari never really got pushed back. I don't know if the New Republic ever made peace with them or anything. Just kind of like, oh, they might return in the future, and then as far as we know, they never do. At least I think that's what it was. As I said in a video a couple weeks ago, my reading comprehension is just absolute shit, so. And it would be really easy to blame this on the 2014 decanonization, but like, there were 10 years in between the publication of this book and the decanonization. And Zahn was just screwing around in the prequel era during that time. So, like, I don't know. I feel like I wish this plotline had been finished. Maybe create, like, a Vigari trilogy. That would have been epic. But no, because we can't have But no, we can't have nice things. So, yeah, so I didn't really write a good conclusion in the script or anything. Or maybe that was a conclusion, but whatever. Bye, idiots. I'm gonna go. This video's gonna be really long. I don't feel like editing this, but, if you're watching this video, that means I got around to editing it, so very cool.